world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive. We're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're
Welcome to the Red Pill Sports Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source, Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Okay, guys, so we got a single topic show today. We're going to be talking even more about Deshawn Watson. I think this is what the format we're going to start to use is a single topic, try to get out a little bit more volume of shows, videos for you. Let's go ahead and get into it. But before we do, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. I don't care if you agree or you disagree or you have some other points that you'd like to make. But either way, it really does help me out. Shooting for that 1,000 subscriber goal line right now. That is the goal. So again, please like, subscribe, and comment. Be nice if you'd share too. Okay, guys, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the show. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this segment. So I know I've been beating the story up like a dead horse, but I really wanted to get back to this Deshawn Watson case. Now, I'm going to be a little bit blatantly honest here. I'm not the biggest Deshawn Watson fan. He's a good quarterback. I don't really care for some of the messaging he puts out on a personal level. The whole Black Lives Matter type stuff and, the smearing of other people. That being said, I feel like the Deshawn Watson case is an important case to sports in general, to the NFL. It's hugely important, and I'll discuss why. And I think it's very important to men. And the idea that a man is, in fact, innocent until proven guilty. And to kind of jog our memory as to why this is important, I'm going to do a little bit of a back and forth with a segment from Outkick's Clay Travis, and going to play that for you. But before we get into that, I want to go back and look at this New York Times article. I believe it came out almost just over a year ago. It was right after Kobe Bryant had passed. And let's read this article together and kind of see what it really means that Deshawn Watson is challenging these allegations and why I think it's important. So let's go ahead and move on to the article. So NewYorkTimes.com, Kobe Bryant and sexual assault case that was dropped but not forgotten. A 2003 rape accusation changed how many saw the Lakers star, but it did not change the trajectory of his career. Even as Kobe moved beyond his career in the NBA and into the next chapter of his Hollywood and tech mogul, he would never fully leave the ugliest part of his past behind. Bryant, among 9 people, including his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, who died on Sunday in a helicopter crash outside Los Angeles, was charged with sexually assaulting a 19-year-old woman in 2003. But as in the vast majority of cases involving accusations of sexual violence, there was no clear resolution. There was no verdict. So this New York Times writer, New York Times, one of the most influential rags in the United States, is bringing up the sexual assault charges, accusations that were never proven after this man is dead, in the wake of his death and his 13-year-old daughter's death. Keep that in mind. Prosecutors dropped the case just before it was scheduled to go to trial. citing the accuser's unwillingness to testify. A lawsuit the woman filed against Bryant ended in a settlement, the details of which have never been made public. In the era before Me Too, the societal reckoning with the frequent sexual harassment and abuse women endure at work and in their personal lives, Bryant resumed a career that had never really paused. Throughout the 2003-04 season, while the case was still being litigated, he flew back and forth between court appearances in Colorado and games, often arriving just minutes before tip-off. The Lakers made the NBA Finals that season but lost their bid for a fourth championship in 5 seasons. Bryant, however, would win 2 more NBA titles plus 2 Olympic gold medals before his retirement in 2016. And he continued his evolution into a global celebrity and international ambassador for both the sport and Nike, his major sponsor. Yet, in 2018, so remember those charges were 2003, we're talking 2018, this is more than a decade later. Yet in 2018, just 7 months after he won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film, Bryant was dropped from the jury of a film festival. Quote, "This is an urgent time to say no to toxic and violent behavior against women. Read a petition urging organizers of the Animation Is Film Festival to disassociate themselves from Bryant." As he had in the past, Bryant declined to discuss the sexual assault case. He said he was disappointed with the decision of the festival organizers, but was now forced on changing the world through diverse stories, characters, and leadership. For a moment, Bryant was back where he had been in 2003. Someone who, like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey, operated at the pinnacle of his profession but stood accused of a terrible crime. Weinstein is currently being tried in a rape case in New York City, the rare celebrity who has had to face such criminal charges. The case against Bryant on June 30th, 2003, when he checked into the Cordelia Lodge and Spa in Edwards, Colorado. He was there to have a knee operation at a clinic in nearby Vail. After being led to his room by a concierge, Bryant asked her to return later and give him a private tour of the property. She did, and then Bryant invited her into his room. They both said later that they began kissing, but what happened in the next few moments became the heart of the dispute. The woman told police that Bryant had raped her. Bryant said they had consensual sex. Prosecutors seemed to have a strong case, according to court documents. An examination of the woman at the hospital revealed a bruise on her neck and tears in her vaginal wall. Both her underwear and Bryant's shirt were bloody. Bryant told the police he had not explicitly asked for consent. While the issue of consent has long been at the heart of sex crime laws, how it is understood and taught has evolved, in part because of high-profile cases like the one against Bryant. No means no has given way to yes means yes, and the idea of explicit consent has become the standard, rather than an expectation that an objecting participant must say no. Almost immediately, the case against Bryant became a news media circus, the biggest celebrity prosecution since O.J. Simpson trial. Quickly, though, the accuser's reputation came under attack. Bryant's lawyer, Pamela Mackey, said that the woman's name in open court 6 times during one hearing, even though the police and court officials had tried to preserve her anonymity, and asked if her injuries could have been caused by having sex with 3 men in 3 days. Television crews camped outside the home of the accuser's parents, and her name was leaked by the court system 3 times. Like the Simpson case a decade before, the Bryant case quickly became about much more than what happened in the hotel room. It was seen through the historical prism of white women falsely accusing black men of sexual violence. The woman in the Bryant case was white. At the same time, the case sparked commentary that perpetuated stereotypes about false accusations of rape. After the case was dropped, Bryant issued a lengthy statement apologizing to the woman and acknowledging her perspective of their encounter, which is farther than most public apologies go. Although I truly believe this encounter between us was consensual, he said in his statement, I recognize now that she did not and does not view this incident the same way I did. The legal troubles behind him, Bryant created an alter ego, calling himself Black Mamba, after Africa's deadliest snake, which figured in 2003 in Kill Bill. The whole process for me was trying to figure out how to cope with this, Bryant told the Washington Post in 2018. I wasn't going to be passive and let this thing just swallow me up. Eventually, there were Mamba Shoes, a Mamba Sports Academy, and the nickname Mombatica for Gianna, the second born of the 4 daughters Bryant shared with his wife, Vanessa. Before the sexual assault case, Bryant was something in the shadow of Shaquille O'Neal playing Robin to Shaq's Batman. After Bryant adopted the Mamba persona, he emerged as his own man. He helped create the dissension that led Phil Jackson to retire and the Lakers to trade O'Neal, though Jackson returned to coach Bryant and the Lakers again. But years after saying, I also want to make it clear that I do not question the motives of this young woman, Bryant seemingly did just that. To explain why he would not comment on the death of Trayvon Martin, the black teenager who was shot to death while returning home from a convenience store, he had a conversation with a journalist, Jamel Hill. He was speaking from the experience of someone who had been on trial for sexual assault, she wrote in a column on Monday, and in his mind had been wrongfully accused. Bryant later apologized to Martin's family. And in 2018, reflecting on the sponsors that cut ties with him after he was arrested, including McDonald's and Coca-Cola, Bryant said they did so because he was too, quote, gritty. Later in his life, Bryant became a big supporter of women's athletics. He took his daughter Gianna to watch the Connecticut Huskies basketball game, recorded voiceovers for the NCAA women's basketball tournament, and talked constantly about the WNBA. And at those 2018 Oscars, hours after, Frances McDormand, winner of the Best Actress Award, gave a powerful speech about the need to include more women in the film business. She was hobnobbing with Bryant at a post-show party. Okay, guys, just to digest that for a second. This is almost 2 decades later. And Kobe Bryant, according to the New York Times, is the picture they're trying to paint in the wake of his death, his tragic death, and the tragic death of his 13-year-old daughter. They're trying to paint Bryant as somebody who got away with it. Keep that in mind as we go now and we do this back and forth with this clip of Clay Travis. Okay, guys, what is up? Let's go ahead and get in. 3, 2, All right, so as we get into this clip, let me talk a little bit really quick and say that generally speaking, I really like Clay Travis. I really feel that for the most part, he does a very good job of giving you the other side of the story compared to the rest of the woke sports media. Now, all that being said, this is one of the times where I think that Clay has it wrong, and I'm going to talk about why it's so important. Keep in mind the article we just went through regarding Kobe Bryant. Let's get into this.
I want to start with the Deshaun Watson story, which I think we now have got some interesting angles at play here. And the NFL draft is, whatever it is, 9 days away. And we probably are going to have 5 quarterbacks in the first round, maybe 6. And one of the challenging things going forward is always trying to project what's going to happen with quarterbacks, whether they're going to perform or not perform. And that's almost always on the field. And here, this Deshaun Watson story is really kind of blowing my mind here over the direction that these cases are going. Let me explain what I mean. Rusty Hardin is Deshaun Watson's lawyer. There have been 22 women who have now named themselves in the complaints and alleged that Deshaun Watson sexually assaulted them. And there is also a simultaneous criminal investigation in addition to these civil lawsuits where charges could or could not be brought against Deshaun Watson. It remains to be seen. But Deshaun Watson has now said publicly through Rusty Hardin, his attorney, all 22 of these women are liars. And I don't understand that legal perspective at all. That is a tough spot. That is a tough putt to.
Okay, let's pause it right there and let's think about this. Now, maybe Clay doesn't understand because he is not being put in the situation. Maybe he's not personalizing it. Maybe he's not being empathetic enough with Deshaun Watson. First and foremost, let's keep in mind that essentially when you're a man and you're accused of rape, generally speaking, in the court of public opinion, okay, if you're accused of rape or you're accused of any kind of sexual misconduct, hell, if you're accused of any kind of assault against a female, in the court of public opinion, your track record of being a good human being, of being a decent person, is thrown out the window. It no longer matters. So you get next to no credit for what your character has been or displayed to that point. And I'm talking about in the court of public opinion. It quickly becomes a guilty until proven innocent situation. Now, this is extremely. Now, again, I understand that Clay might not understand this, that he might not be empathetic with Deshaun Watson here. But this is super important to an athlete because, and particularly an NFL athlete, because the money that you get paid as an NFL player is not guaranteed money. Okay. So a huge portion of what an NFL player makes off the field matters. What I mean by that is their endorsement deals actually matter. It actually what helps to put more money and make the longevity of their career worth it, right? Because their careers also are not as long as basketball players, they're not as long as baseball players, even if they're at the top of the game. So this is really, really important to keep in mind. And I think Clay just doesn't get that. So it's more than just the legal portion here, right? Deshaun has to think about the long game. And he doesn't, and him saying he just doesn't get it, I think that's the most accurate thing I've heard anybody say. He doesn't get it. Let's continue.
Sink if you are the lawyer here. And it also, to me, makes it more difficult to settle this case. Because as soon as you call all 22 of these women liars, and you are saying effectively that all of these women have made it up, that anything that went on between the two of you was consensual, that nothing you did was even inappropriate at all, and all of these women are lying, it makes it hard to settle the case. I'm not saying it.
Now, again, maybe Clay is just looking at this from a legal perspective. I believe he did go to law school. Maybe he's just looking at it as a win-loss type, in the moment. But if you're Deshawn Watson, the damage to your reputation has been done. Period. End of story. It's been done. Settling these cases is not going to save Deshawn Watson from time on the field. He's still most likely going to face a suspension, and we're going to get into that in a little bit here. Regardless of what is found, he's already lost a couple, or at least one sponsor, Beats by Dre, and he's had another sponsorship basically put on hold. So he's currently not making money. It's suspended, essentially. They may or may not bring him back. We don't know. So Clay is interested in settling these cases. But here is the thing. The thing is that settling the cases will not give anybody an idea that Deshawn is innocent. The only thing that will give the appearance that Deshawn is innocent is for him to fight. And I think we've gone way too far down this rabbit hole as men, in particularly these very high monetary value men, settling these cases because it's less expensive, because it's not worth their time. It's set a dangerous precedent. And let's be real, when guys settle these cases, what really goes on in the back of most people's mind is, oh, he was really guilty, he really did it, and he's basically paying them off to be quiet. That's really what's going on in people's minds. So let's keep that in mind. Let's continue.
It's impossible to settle these cases. I'm just saying, when you accuse someone of lying, there are probably some of these women and some of these women's family members now that are going to say, wait a minute. He has called you out as a liar, and then you're going to allow him to settle this case with you? There's not a good resolution to this situation.
So, again, Clay still kind of hyper-focused on the prerogative of everybody else. So, wait a second. This guy has called you a liar, and now you're going to settle with him? Well, how does that look for Deshawn Watson? These women have called you a sexual predator, and now you're going to settle with them. See, therein lies that trap that I just spoke about. That regardless if he settles here, he's still going to be looked at as the bad guy, and he's still going to end up facing time away from the game no matter what. And this is going to affect him monetarily. Let's continue.
To me now. Because if Deshaun Watson ends up actually settling these cases, then everybody's going to say, wait a minute, you said these women were lying. Why would you give them any money at all? And if you are these women, how do...
Now, that's the first thing that Clay says, that he gets it. But what he's not getting is that people are going to say that anyway. If you didn't do it, then why are you even giving these women money?
You settle with Deshaun Watson when he's accused you of lying, because now it's difficult for Deshaun Watson to say, oh, I said those women were lying, but now I'm going to give them some money and we're going to just pretend that I never said they were lying. Like, this situation, I find it to be a really difficult situation for Deshaun Watson, because I don't see how it gets resolved quickly now. And so Deshaun Watson basically said, hey, these women are lying. I didn't behave inappropriately, through his attorney, Rusty Hardin. And then Tony Busby, who is the plaintiff's attorney for these 22 women, came out and said, this is a direct quote, as fully anticipated and despite his lawyer's previous statements, Deshaun Watson's only defense is to call these brave women liars. The weak and vague allegations made in defendant's response are demonstrably false. Watson can't deny he sought out an unusually high number of women for massages on Instagram. He doesn't.
So, again, here's where the double standard for men and women come into play. All right. Women often complain that there's a double standard when it comes to sexual partners between men and women. This is the case. There's no denying it, right? That being said, when it comes to a rape allegation, the double standard gets flipped on its head. In other words, what I'm saying is the fact that a woman may be very, very promiscuous, that she's had sex with multiple partners, maybe even in recent days of her alleged assault, none of that can be taken into consideration. That is not to be held against her, and it's even considered poor form, misogynistic, or woman-hating to even bring it up. However, on the flip side, Deshawn going out and connecting with a ton of women for massages, this track record gets to be held against him. And it's perfectly fine. This is nothing less than a smear campaign. And I'm going to tell you guys very, very blatantly, I don't believe that there is any physical evidence. I am, very, very confident that there is zero physical evidence that supports any of these claims. These women most likely know very well that they cannot win in a criminal courtroom. They cannot win. They cannot win when there is zero evidence other than Deshawn saying that in fact he did have consensual sexual encounters with a handful of these women, which he acknowledges. So all the rest of them can't even put themselves in the same room with Deshawn, right? That they're going to have a hard time even proving that. Then they're going to have a hard time proving that anything sexual of nature happened. And even the women who Deshawn will acknowledge that he had some kind of sexual encounter with did not go to the police. They did not go to a medical examination. They didn't get any kind of those things done. So the ability now to prove any physical evidence that would be there for a rape is almost impossible to obtain. And now you're getting the smear job on Deshaun Watson in order to put pressure on him for him to pay these women out. Allegedly, the original complaint came and was asking for $100,000. Actually, no, allegedly first, the very first allegation came solo, without an attorney, asking for a payoff in the tens of thousands of dollars range. When Deshawn declined, that individual returned with Busby asking for a $100,000 settlement before even filing a civil lawsuit. I'm sorry, but all of this smells of a shakedown. it smells of a shakedown. And Deshawn's reputation is taking a blow no matter what. And now it comes down to how big a blow does it take? And I disagree with Clay here. I believe if he settles with these women, it takes a bigger blow than if he fights them and he wins. Or he at least wins some and he loses others in a civil courtroom. Let's continue.
He doesn't deny he insisted on being nude or nearly nude. He can't deny the massage sessions occurred. He can't deny he wanted more than a massage. And he hasn't credibly denied that something bad happened during the session.
So again, we have the double standard for men and women. What Deshawn chooses to cover or not cover on his body is held against him. It immediately makes him into an attacker. Yet, whatever a woman wears cannot be looked at as, quote unquote, she was asking for it, and rightly so. A woman should be able to wear what she wants, and that does not mean that she wants to be sexually assaulted. But why is that standard not the same for men? That's my question. Whatever a man wears, now you look at that, and that does or does not make him into a sexual predator? No, not okay.
Instead claims that any sexual acts were consensual. Of course, his definition of consent doesn't comport with that of everyone else. I have faith that the court process will sort out the truth as these matters progress. The problem for Deshawn Watson is he doesn't gain anything by this process taking a long time.
And there is the crux of Clay Travis's argument, for which I disagree. Deshawn Watson has his entire career and his good name to gain by this taking a long time. If you're concerned about legacy, it is important that Deshawn Watson stands up and fights these allegations. We just read through an article that almost 2 decades later is still trying to smear Kobe Bryant. It is a fact that Kobe Bryant's accuser had sex with 3 men, which included Kobe Bryant, within a 3-day window. One of which was after her alleged rape by Kobe Bryant. Yet Kobe, and let's look at Kobe's track record as a person. All the charitable work he does, all the upstanding character things he's done. And then let's be real. He played in the NBA. We all know the stories of NBA players. The number of women that must have been in and out of his room that he most likely treated with plenty of respect. Because they were okay to leave and never bring it up and not show their face again in his life. You look at Kobe Bryant's track record, and yet, nearly 2 decades later, because Kobe Bryant decided to settle the civil part of the allegations, Kobe is still being hammered over the head. rest in peace, Kobe. I'm sorry that somebody had the audacity to write that kind of article in the wake of your tragic and early death. But it is what it is. They did it. More than 2 decades after the fact. They put him in the same breath as Harvey Weinstein. It's preposterous. But let's see if we can wrap up this bit with Clay.
And I got to be honest with you, I don't understand his legal defense at this point in time. Because if I were advising Deshaun Watson, this is me putting on my lawyer hat, I would tell him, settle, settle, settle. You could have settled this for $100,000 when the first woman came to you and said, hey, I was mistreated. We would have never seen her story go public. $100,000 is a rounding error to Deshaun Watson, who has a $156 million contract extension that he just agreed to and makes tens of millions of dollars elsewhere, probably through endorsements and everything else at that point in time. So the idea that you wouldn't have in the first place paid $100,000 to settle these cases, and let me be honest with you, I understand if you feel like you did nothing wrong, why you wouldn't want to just give somebody $100,000. But the negative publicity attendant with this first woman going public and saying that you sexually assaulted her cost you more than $100,000 in the court of public opinion. So I would have advised Deshaun Watson when this first woman went public, I would have been like, hey, we need to think about settling this case. Because she wanted $100,000.
Again, the settle it, settle it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
She might have taken 50, which is nothing to Deshaun Watson. And then if this woman doesn't go public, a lot of these other women probably wouldn't go public either. And I would have said, if I was Deshaun Watson's attorney, hey, no more massages, dude. You are putting yourself in a rough spot when you lock a door, when you're behind a closed door with one other woman. There's nothing good that can come out of this from you. These are not therapeutic massages. Let's stop pretending otherwise. You are interested in this being something more than a therapeutic massage. You're a starting quarterback in the NFL in a fabulous city in Houston, Texas. If you want women, there's not hardly any man in America who has access to more women than you do. This idea that you're going to be trying to meet them and engage in sexual activity through massages, that's not going to work, buddy.
Okay, and this goes back to my premise that I put out a couple weeks ago, or my thesis. I believe that, and I really do believe this, and I think if the civil, if more than the civil case is pursued, in other words, if the criminal side of this is actually pursued, which I really am doubting, some of the description of what we've heard go on with Deshaun Watson, i.e. the Instagramming, using the Instagram for contacts, asking for quote-unquote referrals, having the, like I said, Tony Busby bringing in a human trafficking, anti-human trafficking advocate to talk. I would not be surprised if this were a prostitution situation, and that they thought that this was going to be a shakedown of Deshaun Watson. Now, Clay's talking about meeting women and this, that, and the other. Let's remember the time frame of these incidents. They were all during the lockdown. So where exactly was this young man supposed to find all these women that Clay says that he's going to find? Where's he going to find them? That's right, probably on Instagram. And if this was a prostitution style event, the whole reason why And this is what annoys me when women, want to be little men that use prostitution services. They be little men and they're like, oh, well, you couldn't get it somewhere else. You couldn't blah, blah, blah. No, you're not understanding. Women, people don't understand. Men who use prostitutes don't pay the prostitute for sex. They do not pay the prostitute for sex. They pay the prostitute to go away after the sex is over. That's what they're paying the prostitute for. They're paying the prostitute to not have to jump through the hoops, to do this, to do that, so that everybody is clear and on the up and up. And oh, by the way, don't let the door hit you on the way out, honey. That's what men who use prostitute services are actually paying for. They're paying for the lack of headache. They're paying for the lack of drama. That's what they're paying for. Let's finish this up.
We're just not going to do that, all right? So that's the advice that I would have given him if I was a lawyer. And by the way, one reason you pay lawyers is so they will tell you things that might be uncomfortable. You sometimes hear lawyers say, hey, I got to have a come to Jesus meeting with my client. I'm going to sit him down and I'm going to tell him what's up and the risk that he's running. And if he doesn't take my advice, that's fine. But I'm not in the yes man business. Good lawyer isn't a yes man. A good lawyer challenges you. He or she advises you the best decisions that you can make. You don't need another yes man if you are a star athlete.
Alrighty, so that's pretty much going to wrap up the Clay Travis portion. And if you want to take a listen to it, you can look it up on YouTube. That clip is out there. It came out on the 20th. I'll try and grab a link and stick it in the description down below. That being said, I also talked about this being super important to the NFL. And I've talked a little bit about Kareem Hunt, talked a little bit about Ezekiel Elliott. That's just to name a few in the NFL that cases were very weak. In Ezekiel Elliott's particular case, there was even evidence that the entire story was fabricated, yet Ezekiel Elliott still faced a suspension, a 6-game suspension. Now, the thing is that when this is a huge, absolutely huge case for the NFL. I think one of the things that separated the Kobe case from anything that we've seen in the NFL is that Kobe was able to continue his career as a basketball player while he fought his legal battles. As I remember it, he never served a suspension for that. And that goes to it really is a credit to the players' union of the NBA. The NFL Players Union has for years bent over backwards for the NFL. Their money is not guaranteed. Their contracts are not guaranteed. They can be cut. They can be traded. Even with their no trade clauses, there's ways around these things. And the NFL Players Association knows that. The NFL Players Union is not a very strong union. We could be looking at a case in which Deshawn Watson changes all of that. If Deshawn is innocent, and we're going to presume he's innocent until he's proven guilty. If Deshaun Watson is innocent, and he's able to prove that in a court of law, whether we're talking criminal, or we're talking civil, or we're talking about both, what that means is that the NFL is going to have a very hard time suspending Deshaun Watson. And should they suspend him while an investigation is going on, while a trial is going on, and later he is proved to be innocent, they are going to have a hard time winning any kind of civil case that Deshawn brings forward, wanting to recoup his money. This could change how player negotiations and contracts are structured in the NFL, not just for people who have done quote unquote bad things and need disciplinary action, but actually how the entire pay structure works. And we could see this, if Deshawn wins, we could see this lead to guaranteed contracts in the NFL. So this is a really, really important case, guys. And I don't think people understand just how important it is. All right, man. That's what I got on this topic. Thanks for listening. Let's go ahead and move on. All right, guys. That's all we have for this episode. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Share this video. I do appreciate it. By the way, also comment and let me know if you like this format of going to a single topic as well. That's what we got. Thank you very much. Remember, be practical, be purposeful, get fit with a purpose, guys.
Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird. Y'all so stupid. Why are y'all so stupid?